If you're watching this right now, then you already know something feels different in 2025. Something is happening behind the scenes that isn't being loudly discussed, but people who watch global currencies closely can sense that the air is shifting. And today, we're diving into one of the biggest conversations happening in private investor circles: the silent signals surrounding the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong. These signals aren't being advertised, they aren't making headlines, and they aren't confirmed by big institutions, but they're being whispered about in the corners of financial forums, in investor chats, and in the quiet conversations of people who study currency patterns for a living. Today, we're looking at why these whispers are resurfacing in 2025, why the IQD and VND are suddenly getting attention again, and why so many people believe something is building beneath the surface. Whether you hold these currencies, or you're simply curious about the global market shifts, stay with me until the end, because today's breakdown could help you understand why so many investors are on alert right now. When we talk about the Iraqi dinar, we're talking about a currency that has been surrounded by speculation for over a decade. Most of the dramatic predictions over the years never materialized, but that hasn't stopped people from watching closely. What's interesting in 2025 isn't some sudden announcement. It's the subtle activity floating around financial conversations. People are noticing patterns that don't normally happen. They're pointing out unusual chatter about banks updating internal systems, about institutions reviewing low-profile foreign currencies, and about small but noticeable shifts in how regional markets are reacting. None of these things confirm major changes, but they do raise eyebrows because they don't usually happen without a reason. That's why people call them silent signals. They aren't loud enough to be official, but they're loud enough that attentive investors can't ignore them. And when signals show up across multiple regions, especially ones connected to currencies like the IQD, it sparks curiosity about whether something bigger is being prepared in the background. Now let's talk about timing, because 2025 is already shaping up to be an unusual year. Global markets are adapting to new energy developments, new international partnerships, and shifting financial strategies among major countries. When global pressures rise, currencies that usually stay quiet sometimes behave differently. Investors have been reporting increased speculation surrounding IQD discussions in private chat rooms, with many people suggesting that there are too many quiet updates happening all at once for it to be random. Again, we are talking about speculation, not confirmed institutional action, but even speculation can reveal where investor attention is moving. Some people believe banks may be refreshing procedures for dealing with lesser, traded foreign currencies simply as routine updates. Others believe these updates point toward preparation for higher volumes in the future. Whatever the reason, the timing is interesting, and it has definitely captured the attention of people who have watched the dinar for many years. One of the most talked about rumors in 2025 is that certain back-end verification systems are being tested or reviewed. Now, let's be clear, financial institutions update systems all the time. They do audits, they test software, they prepare for regulatory changes. None of that means a currency shift is guaranteed. But here's where investors are connecting dots. They claim that these updates are happening specifically in areas tied to exotic currencies or low-activity notes. When multiple investors from different regions start mentioning similar system behavior around the same time, it naturally creates curiosity. People begin wondering, are these routine tests? Are banks simply refreshing their databases? Or is there a coordinated reason behind the scenes? At the moment, no one knows for sure. But when speculation heats up, especially around currencies like IQD and VND, it tends to spread quickly among communities that track market movement with extreme attention. This brings us to the Vietnamese Dong, which many people overlook compared to the dinar, but has been gaining more attention in recent years. Vietnam's economy has been growing steadily, attracting foreign investors and building new international partnerships. And as 2025 unfolds, people watching currency trends have noticed unusual discussions about the dong in online financial spaces. These aren't headline-worthy spikes or official announcements. more like subtle conversations connecting moves in regional markets with broader speculation about the VND's future trajectory. Some investors believe the dong is being quietly monitored more heavily because Vietnam continues to expand its global presence. Others claim there is simply more conversation because people are comparing it to the dinar's ongoing speculation. Either way, the VND is showing up more frequently in investor discussions, and when two currencies with long-standing speculative interest both become active topics, it naturally makes people wonder whether something larger is happening. So why are these quiet signals getting attention now? One explanation is that global financial environments are changing quickly in 2025. International trade agreements, currency realignments, and digital banking improvements are happening everywhere. When systems modernize, older currencies sometimes get unexpected attention simply because banks need to update how they handle them. But others argue that there are just too many overlapping hints this year to explain it all as coincidence. They point to increased activity in speculative forums, more conversations about currency verification, and quiet chatter that banks are reviewing certain processes. Now, again, none of this confirms any major event, but investor psychology is powerful. When enough small signals appear at the same time, people begin connecting them into a story. And in this case, that story is the idea that the IQD and VND might be entering a new phase of global attention. Let's get into what many investors are calling the silent preparation phase. This phrase doesn't refer to anything official. It refers to the feeling investors get when system updates and financial conversations seem to line up in a way that hints at preparation. Some people claim that tellers and smaller financial institutions are asking questions about certain currencies. Others say that online trading platforms are showing minor changes in how these currencies are displayed. Some believe banks are refreshing internal guidelines related to foreign currency exchanges. Whether these claims are accurate or exaggerated is impossible to confirm, but they contribute to a wave of speculation that something is happening beneath the surface. Investors who track patterns insist that financial institutions rarely change procedures unless they're preparing for something in the near future, while skeptics say that such updates happen regularly and shouldn't be interpreted as signs. Both sides can argue valid points, but what's clear is that these conversations are causing a surge of interest in 2025. Another reason investors are buzzing is the rise of digital banking. As banks upgrade their systems, they often have to include lesser, used currencies to avoid gaps in their software. This means currencies like the IQD and VND may appear in update notes simply because the platforms are modernizing, not because major value changes are coming. However, people following the speculation believe that the timing of these updates matters. They argue that globally synchronized updates don't usually happen unless there's a deeper reason. Whether or not that's true, the perception itself becomes powerful, and perception often fuels momentum in investor communities. When people see quiet but repeated references to exotic currencies during periods of digital transition, they interpret it as a sign that these currencies might soon get more attention than usual. This isn't confirmed, but it's the kind of reasoning that keeps discussions alive and growing rapidly. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest themes among people watching these currencies: readiness. Not readiness for an official event, but readiness in terms of personal organization. Many experienced investors believe that whenever a currency is publicly discussed, whether through rumors or through verified updates, it's important to have everything in order. That includes keeping notes in good condition, knowing where documentation is stored, and understanding how your financial institution handles foreign currency exchanges. Even if nothing major happens, being organized protects you from confusion, delays, and mistakes. And if activity ever does increase, whether from market fluctuations or investor interest, you're already prepared. This mindset doesn't rely on predictions, it simply relies on being proactive. And in 2025, a lot of people watching the IQD and VND are adopting this approach as a way to stay ahead of changing market dynamics, even if no official confirmation exists. One of the biggest questions circulating right now is whether these subtle signals are coordinated or coincidental. It's impossible to say. Some investors think certain banks in different countries are preparing quietly because they see potential changes coming in their regions. Others believe these updates are simply part of routine global banking maintenance. But when two different currencies, located in completely different parts of the world, start generating similar discussions at the same time, it naturally sparks curiosity. People wonder whether the signals are related or whether global financial pressures are pushing both currencies into new conversations independently. Either explanation is possible, but the important point is that investors are paying closer attention in 2025 than they have in years. And when attention increases, rumors grow, theories multiply, and speculation spreads. Even without confirmed information, the community becomes more engaged and more alert to every small shift. Let's shift to another angle that is often overlooked: psychology. Investor psychology plays a huge role in why these silent signals feel impactful. When people wait for years without seeing major changes, small movements suddenly appear more dramatic. A simple system update can feel like a hidden message. A minor trading fluctuation can be interpreted as a major shift. And when dozens of people interpret these small movements the same way, the narrative grows. This doesn't mean those interpretations are correct, but it does show how collective observation builds momentum. In 2025, investors are more connected than ever. A quiet rumor in one country spreads globally in minutes. A screenshot of a banking screen circulates within hours. A whisper becomes a full conversation in less than a day. So the silence surrounding IQD and VND in official channels doesn't stop the speculation. In fact, it amplifies it. What makes this year particularly intense is how many people say they're seeing patterns in multiple locations. Some investors claim banks have been unusually attentive to verifying certain currencies. Others say they were asked more questions during exchanges than usual. Some mention that staff seem to be reviewing unfamiliar procedures. None of these experiences guarantee anything major is coming, but they become part of the broader discussion. People share their experiences online, others relate to them, and from there, the speculation grows. What we're seeing in 2025 is a renewed cycle of curiosity. People are hungry for clarity, but the silence from official sources only fuels deeper examination of every small detail. And this cycle keeps the conversation alive long after it would normally fade. Another point investors are discussing is global coordination. Many feel that if any currency were ever to experience major changes, not necessarily a revaluation, but adjustments, reforms, or market shifts, it would likely be coordinated globally to avoid disruption. Because of that belief, people are paying close attention to the fact that certain conversations seem to be happening simultaneously in the US, Canada, parts of Europe, and the Middle East. They believe coordinated timing matters. Meanwhile, skeptics argue that global synchronization is simply a coincidence caused by the fact that all financial institutions tend to update their systems around the same time each year. Both sides make compelling arguments, and neither side can truly verify their claims. But the discussion itself highlights how much attention the IQD and VND are receiving in 2025, regardless of whether official action is happening. Let's take a moment to focus on what experienced speculative investors always emphasize: personal preparation. They say that even during periods of uncertainty, it's smart to stay organized. That means keeping your currency notes clean, safely stored, and easy to verify. It means knowing your bank's policies before you walk in. It means having all your identification ready so you aren't scrambling at the last minute. Many investors view preparation as a form of discipline. Not a guarantee of outcome, but a sign of readiness. They argue that the people who benefit from market changes aren't the ones who wait passively, but the ones who stay alert and organized. In this sense, the buzz around the IQD and VND in 2025 is encouraging many people to adopt smarter habits, even if nothing major happens immediately. And that mindset helps people stay grounded while still remaining watchful. Let's talk a little about the emotional side of all this. Because for many holders, this journey has been long, confusing, and filled with ups and downs. Some people have been watching the IQD for years, even decades, and every small rumor feels like a spark of hope. Others have just recently joined the conversation and are trying to understand why there is so much debate and speculation. The emotional roller coaster is part of the reason why silent signals feel so powerful this year. People want updates. They want clarity. They want something, anything, that suggests movement. And when quiet signals appear in investor discussions, they feel meaningful. But emotions can cloud judgment too, so it's important to stay balanced. Hope can be motivating, but staying informed, rational, and grounded is what helps people navigate speculative periods safely and intelligently. Another topic circulating heavily is the idea of institutional confidence. Some investors believe that when financial institutions quietly test systems or update procedures related to exotic currencies, it signals confidence in future activity. They argue that banks wouldn't spend time or resources improving processes for currencies they don't expect to handle. Others push back, saying banks update everything regularly, and that these updates have nothing to do with expectations, they're simply maintenance. There's no clear answer here, but it's easy to see why people interpret these details differently. When the financial world is quiet, people fill in the gaps with their own theories. And in 2025, there are a lot of gaps, which leads to a wide variety of interpretations. The key is understanding that these discussions reflect investor perception, not official confirmation. Still, perception shapes behavior, and behavior influences the narrative. Let's dive deeper into why some people call this a period of silent build-up. It's because nothing is being openly announced, but small pieces keep showing up in conversation. Pieces that feel like clues. Someone sees a trading system update. Someone else hears about a teller reviewing a manual. Another person notices a bank adjusting how it categorizes certain currency codes. These bits of information create a puzzle. And while none of them prove anything on their own, they raise enough questions to keep the conversation moving. People begin asking why now? Why so many small details at once? Why across different regions? These questions don't have definitive answers, but they fuel the belief that something is forming beneath the surface. Something that hasn't reached the spotlight yet, but may be moving into place slowly and quietly. Now let's address the elephant in the room: speculation about revaluation. It's important to understand that revaluation rumors have circulated for years without becoming reality, and nothing in 2025 confirms any official upcoming revaluation for the IQD or VND. However, what has changed this year is the level of conversation. Investors aren't claiming that announcements are happening. They're pointing out that certain signals feel different than previous years. They argue that system updates are more widespread, that international conversations are more synchronized, and that market discussions are more active. Whether any of this means real value changes are coming is impossible to know. But the speculation itself is shaping the conversation, and that's why so many people are watching these currencies more closely in 2025 than they have in a long time. Moving on, one of the most practical topics circulating is documentation. Investors who've been around for a while are encouraging newer holders to get organized now, even if nothing major happens. They suggest confirming which banks accept these currencies, understanding the identification requirements, and learning how verification works. They remind people that being unprepared can cause unnecessary delays or confusion, whether exchanging a small amount or a larger amount. This kind of preparation doesn't rely on predictions. It simply reflects smart financial behavior. And because the IQD and VND speculation cycle is back in motion this year, more people are focusing on getting themselves organized. It's one of the few parts of this conversation that remains consistent, no matter what happens next. Another point being discussed is the idea of global alignment. Some investors believe that when multiple countries appear to update financial systems or review foreign currency procedures around the same time, it hints at coordinated awareness. They think this could mean institutions are preparing for higher engagement with certain currencies or anticipating future market shifts. Skeptics argue that global banking cycles often align naturally because countries follow similar fiscal calendars and system update schedules. Both interpretations exist, and it's up to each individual investor to decide what makes sense to them. What matters for this discussion is that people are paying attention, comparing notes, and seeing patterns they believe are worth watching as 2025 continues unfolding. Now let's talk about something subtle but interesting: the emergence of VND discussions. The Vietnamese dong has been mentioned less over the years compared to the IQD, but in 2025, it's appearing in investor conversations more than usual. Some believe this is because Vietnam's economic growth has been steady, and more countries are forming partnerships with Vietnam. Others say the VND is simply riding the wave of renewed speculation circulating around the dinar. But when both currencies start gaining attention at the same time, investors naturally wonder if the patterns are connected. Nothing official ties them together, but speculation often thrives on timing, and in 2025, the timing is aligning in a way that feels unusual to many people watching the markets closely. As people continue analyzing these silent signals, one theme keeps coming up: patience. Many investors remind each other that speculative markets move slowly and that most major currency reforms, when they happen, take time, planning, and coordination. They encourage people not to rush to conclusions but to stay aware, stay informed, and stay grounded. This balanced approach helps prevent disappointment when rumors fade and helps people stay ready if anything unexpected happens. In 2025, patience is being emphasized more than ever because the signals people are noticing are subtle, not loud, not official, but intriguing enough to keep people alert and curious. Now, let's look at the big picture. The combination of increased investor chatter, small system updates, new global partnerships, digital banking expansion, and unpredictable global financial shifts has created a perfect environment for speculation to grow. Even without confirmation, people feel like something is brewing. They can't point to a single event or announcement, but they point to dozens of small indicators that collectively feel meaningful. And this feeling, whether accurate or not, is what's keeping investor communities locked in and paying attention. Silent signals don't create certainty, but they create awareness. And awareness often leads to preparation. As we move toward the close of this breakdown, it's clear that 2025 has become a fascinating year for anyone watching the IQD and VND. The conversations happening right now may not lead to sudden changes, but they're reigniting global curiosity. Investors who stepped back years ago are stepping back in. People who ignored these currencies are now researching them again. And communities that were once quiet are now buzzing with fresh discussions. Whether these signals point to routine market movement or something more substantial remains to be seen. But what's undeniable is that something is happening, something quiet, something subtle, and something that's capturing worldwide attention. So what should viewers take away from all this? The key message is simple: stay informed, stay organized, stay realistic, and stay prepared. Speculation doesn't guarantee outcomes, but awareness helps you navigate opportunities wisely. If you hold IQD or VND, keep your notes in good condition and your documentation ready. Understand how your bank handles foreign currency. Track conversations, not to rely on rumors, but to stay aware of market sentiment. And remember that silent signals aren't confirmations. They're reminders to stay alert in a world where financial systems are constantly evolving. As we wrap up today's urgent 2025 update, one thing is clear. Whether these silent signals lead to anything major or simply fade into routine financial activity, they represent a shift in global attention, and whenever attention shifts, especially toward currencies as heavily watched as the IQD and VND, you can be sure that investors around the world will be watching closely. If change comes, it will come quietly, through hints and signals long before any official announcement. That's why staying informed matters. That's why staying prepared matters. And that's why these quiet conversations in 2025 have become such a major topic in global currency discussions. If you found this breakdown valuable, stay tuned, stay sharp, and stay subscribed, because we'll continue tracking every shift, every whisper, and every silent signal that emerges. In a world where financial movements rarely arrive with warning, awareness is your greatest advantage.